Let's talk about the middle path. So I've found that in a lot of spiritual circles, there tends to be two paths, what I call the ascension-based path as well as the descent-based path. Both means are valid, but what can occur if you spend a primary amount of time in one of them, you can have judgments about the other side of the coin, and this can create a separation with the ultimate goal of spirituality to remember our unity to come back to oneness. So I want to explore this today, and I'm going to share a little bit about which one's what, and so you have an idea of what the ascent-based path is as well as the descent, and then how you can integrate them to find the middle path, which is actually a lot of the teachings. If we look at the Tao Te Ching, like this is the ultimate between the yin and the yang balance. This is what we want. So firstly, what is ascension and what are generally ascension based practices? So, the ascetic realm is very ascension based. If you look at yoga, meditation, this is generally about ascension. It's about connecting to the higher states of consciousness and the unity and the oneness above. So it's about moving out of our bodies into the upper realms. So if we're looking at the chakra system, this is coming from the base up to the sacral, the solar plexus, the heart, the throat, the third eye, and the crown, and moving upwards. So, this is what the ascent is all about. Now, the descent is about the opposite. It's about descending from spirit down into matter. So, it's about bringing spirit into this world and descending into it. So, what we have here is more shamanic based practices where it's like, let's get in our bodies, let's get in the world. It's like what a lot of the work I do in somatic therapy and movement and noise and sound and trauma healing. That's all a descent based path because we're clearing blockages within the body. And the body is a matter, it's material. So we're looking at how we can open ourselves to bring more spirit into matter. And so we need to clear our blocks, our limitations, and so on to actually open this possibility. Now, what happens for people is that they generally find themselves in connected to one side more than the other. For me, early on in my journey, I was a very ascension based person. I was meditating, I was doing yoga, I was doing a lot of practices. But what occurred was a dissociation from myself because I was trying to escape into 5D reality and get ascend into like states of nirvana, but I wasn't actually embodied in the material world. So this looked like a detachment and a disconnect from places and people around me. So I actually had to go on the journey of descending, which for me meant meeting my trauma. It meant meeting my emotions. That's a big part of the descent path. And actually coming into this world. And if we look at it in the business side of things, a lot of spiritual people, they don't care about business. It's all about how can we go into nirvana? How can we get to a higher state of consciousness? And they're very ascent based. But business is actually a descent path. It's about bringing spirit down into matter. And this is how we get the embodiment of what we want to be here and create in this world. This is why I love business as a model of spiritual development is because it actually requires both paths. It requires us to go up into spirit, to be inspired, to find inspiration, to connect to a greater source so we can create from that. And then we need to be able to anchor that into our bodies and into the world. So we're actually bringing down the spirit, the greater consciousness into this world. And this is why I've created the soul method, is because this is the process bringing more spirit down into matter. And this is the only way we can actually have impact and create from a heart-centered place. We want to be moving from a place of integrity, from connection to ourselves, while also being able to bring that into this world. I know I've met many people who are very at higher states of consciousness, but there feels like a disconnect because they dissociate from life. They're actually looking to escape the 3D reality and ascend to another state of consciousness. Now, until we come into relationship with the 3D state of consciousness, we're never going to be able to ascend because it's coming from a place of escapism. And it won't allow us to bring heaven onto earth if that is the ultimate goal or the new earth or whatever you're wanting to create, because it's actually coming from a place of avoidance and we haven't come into acceptance with what is. So when we're able to do this, when we're able to bring our state of being into matter and bring our spirit and soul into our body, we begin to integrate. And this is why we need to consider, how are we connecting to both paths? For those knowing Carl Jung, you may know his quote: "The roots of the tree that reach, the branches of the tree that reach up to heaven must have its roots reaching down to hell." This is what he was talking about. We need to be connected to the heights as well as the depths so we can stay rooted and grounded. And so we need to be considering how we are doing both. So when we have these big experiences, if it's awakening, if it's a really deep meditation, a retreat, or like life-changing experience, well then how are we integrating that to bring it back into the world rather than leaving it on the mountaintop and be like, oh, I know that exists, but how are we bringing it back into the world and applying it to our real life situation? Because this is how we begin to create change. I've seen so many people who will continuously go on a medicine journey or have these big experiences that completely crack them open, and then they revert back into the old world because they haven't had the tools to take the time and space to integrate it so they can then develop and change their reality in this 3D. It was about, wow, that was a great experience, my life has changed, and then they go sit back in the box that they've operated in all the time. So what we're looking to do is actually integrate these two so a person can have the big experience, connect to spirit, while then bringing it down into matter so we can actually begin to change the material world into something more beautiful. Enjoy.